3, 2, 1. Okay.
All right, so question number 1. Are there any major issues side effects students could have from getting the vaccine?
So the question is whether there's any major side effects that students can have from getting the COVID vaccine. So there's two types of two types of COVID vaccines that have been licensed for use in young people in the United States. One is the mRNA, and the other one is the J&J vaccine. For the mRNA vaccine, the major side effects you see in young people or college-age students is myocarditis, which can present in the form of chest pain. It can happen anywhere from several days to a few weeks after the vaccination. It generally resolves without any specific treatment. It's a mild disease, and the CDC and the FDA has been monitoring that. You can also have carditis or inflammation of the heart muscles from COVID itself. Looking at it, there are more cases of myocarditis from COVID infection in young people than there have been with the vaccination. The preponderance of evidence indicates that there's overwhelming benefit when you look at the incidence of myocarditis in young people versus the incidence of myocarditis as a result of COVID. Is something in the order of 29 times more risk of getting myocarditis from the infection than from the vaccination itself. We know that even though the risk of death from the COVID infection in young people is relatively low, but there have been so many reported cases, and we have seen many people as young as 18 and within that age range of anywhere from 18 to 35 die from COVID infection who have not been vaccinated. And so far within our area, and in fact in North Dakota, I haven't heard of any report of anyone within that age group that have died after vaccination where the cause of death have been attributed to the vaccine.
Okay, thank you. Are you watching time?
A little bit, but
all right.
I'm kind of watching things.
How can getting the vaccine help stop the spread of COVID-19?
Okay. The question is, how can getting the COVID vaccination help stop the spread of the COVID infections in the community? Think about any other disease, any other vaccine-preventable disease. That would help you understand what we are talking about here. Things like chickenpox in children, things like polio, things like measles that you perhaps as a college student haven't even seen anybody that has infection in your lifetime. There was a time when these diseases were endemic, but we've been able to eradicate them through mass immunization. So if everybody can get vaccinated around the same time, which was what I had hoped last fall or late last year when the vaccine was approved, I thought we'll be able to get everybody vaccinated. Because the disease continues to spread as long as they are susceptible hosts. Any infection at all will continue to spread as long as they are susceptible hosts. So what the vaccine does is decreases the number of susceptible hosts. So if you can get infected, then you can spread it. That's just the simple equation. Because if you can get infected, then you can spread it. The other thing we know that evidence suggests that some of the people who have been vaccinated can contract the infection, but their risk of spreading the infection to other people are low, especially if you have a weakened immune system or if you are of advanced age. So what we are encouraging people to do is if we all get vaccinated around the same time, then the virus will have a very small susceptible hosts to spread in the community, and that's in fact the most effective way to eradicate the spread of the virus. As long as they are susceptible hosts and it continues to spread, one of the things that can happen is over time, even those who've been vaccinated their immune system, their immune response to the vaccine would wane. And some older folks and some people that have underlying weakened immune system will still remain susceptible even after they've been vaccinated. And so they will continue to get infected. Where I see people who have been vaccinated but who are getting the infection because they have family members who have not been vaccinated because they think they are young and don't need the vaccine, and then they get infection and then pass it to grandpa or grandma who's already been vaccinated and thinking that they are protected. So getting vaccinated is one of the quickest way to control the spread of the infection in the community.
Why should students care about getting the vaccine?
I think the students should care more than anybody else. Part of the privilege of being a college student, we are idealistic. You want to do, you literally want to save the world. That's why you're going to college. And there's nothing more you can do at this point to save the world than to contribute to the eradication of this pandemic. So you should care. Number one, you don't know how it would affect you if you get infected. Yes, many college students who get infected will have mild disease, but a few people will have serious infection and end up in the hospital, and some may die. Unfortunately, that is the truth. Even if it is one college student out of 10,000 that dies from preventable disease, that's a tragedy. You don't want to be the one that got infected and then spread it to your friends, and eventually one of them gets hospitalized, or God forbid, one of them dies. You don't want that on your conscience. So any little part that you can do to control the spread of COVID-19 in the community is very, very important. I have patients who are in the hospital, who are sick, who are dying, because a family member who didn't think that they were susceptible, or didn't think that they were going to get very sick, got infection and passed it to them, and now they are sick and in a hospital. You don't want that on your conscience. As a college student, that's very hard to deal with, just because of a shot. That so far what we know, that if you get it, you may have a sore arm, you may have a fever or headache for half a day or a few hours, which will respond to Tylenol. And to have somebody that you know, or somebody that you care about, die because you are afraid of getting a sore arm for a day or two. I don't think that's something I wish for any college student to have to go through.
If you could tell the world something about COVID, what would you want them to know?
It is a tragedy that has befallen mankind at this time, but it is a preventable disease. I still say it, and I maintain it, that every death, at least most death from COVID is a preventable death. We initially, there are so many things we didn't know about it, but now we know how we can prevent infection. And we know how we can, prevent contracting the infection. It is unfortunate that some people still think that it's a made-up disease. I've heard of all kinds of things, and people get it, and people get seriously sick, and people die from it. Simply because, there's a very large segment of the population that still don't believe that it is a serious disease, and it is killing people every day. In our community and all over the world. And it is because there are people who don't care that are willing to spread the disease. Once we can control the spread, we can control it. Most deaths from COVID is a preventable death, and I still maintain it, and many people agree with me the best way to prevent yourself and prevent your loved one from dying from COVID is not to get infection.
What do you tell patients who are reluctant to get the vaccine?
Well, many people are reluctant to get the vaccine for many different reasons. I try to talk to almost everyone that I see that have not been vaccinated about it. I want to find out from them why they have not been vaccinated. And the answer that I get is different and varied. Some say it's because they don't think it's safe. Some say it's because they are waiting for more research on the vaccine. Some say that it hasn't been around for long enough. And some worry about all the side effects they've read about on Facebook and other media about it. I can tell you, as someone who's been vaccinated, someone who's an infectious disease specialist, and someone who takes care of COVID-infected patients on a daily basis, ever since the outbreak started, that the benefit of getting the vaccine far, far outweighs any risk from the vaccine. Yes, you may have some sore arm. Yes, you may have a fever. You may feel like you have the flu for a day or two after you get the vaccine. But by and large, this will go away. If you get the infection, there's no predicting how it will go. We have seen many people who think that their risk is low, end up dying from the disease. I've seen people who have been infected. Like I said, I asked them why they have not been vaccinated. And some people tell me, I felt that I'm young, that even if I get it, I might just have a cold or, cold-like symptoms for a day or two. End up in the hospital, sometimes end up on a ventilator, end up in the ICU and get very sick. And some have ended up dying. So there's no predicting how it would go when you get infection if you have not been infected. It is too much of a gamble to say that you're sure that if you get it, you're just going to be sick for a day or two and you'll be fine. I think it's too risky. The best way to make sure that you don't get seriously sick from COVID and the best way to guarantee that you don't die from COVID is not to get infected. Gambling and saying that, if I get infected, maybe because you know someone that got infected and had a disease, had an illness for a day or two, doesn't mean that that's the same way it would happen when you get infected. Please do not gamble. It is not worth it.
We know vaccinated individuals can still contract COVID. What differences are you seeing in vaccinated versus unvaccinated hospitalized individuals?
Okay, that's very important. The question is, what's the difference in vaccinated versus unvaccinated individuals who get hospitalized with COVID? One thing I will tell you that majority of the vaccinated people that are in the hospital are elderly and have multiple other comorbid conditions, generally above 60 to 70 years old. Most of the unvaccinated hospitalized patients are in the younger age group. We don't know why that is the case, but we know that majority of 75 and older, in fact 70 and older, have all been vaccinated. So that's one explanation. And most of the younger people who are infected, have this attitude that their risk is low. That even if they get infected, they will have mild disease, and they get surprised when literally get shocked when they end up in the hospital and are seriously sick, because that's not what they've been led to believe. Even though I don't know of anybody that is still telling them that. Anybody that is, that knows what they are talking about, that is still telling them that. So in terms of when you're above 80 years old, in my experience, it doesn't really matter whether you're vaccinated or not. the trend of the disease is almost the same, and that is like I've mentioned during this discussion. When you're above a certain age group, your immune system is weak. Even if you're vaccinated, you don't have the same protection you get if you're vaccinated when you're young. There's a reason why we still recommend vaccination, or we mandate vaccination in children. That's when the immune system is very strong and they can respond to the vaccine. And if they don't get infected, they carry that protection to the elderly population. In fact, to go back, the pneumococcal vaccine, when it was approved for children and mandated for children, we found that the protection wasn't only for pneumococcal infection in children, that it translated in providing better protection to people 65 and older. And that is because the older population get infected from younger people. The younger person may recover and have a milder disease. So protecting, giving the vaccine to younger people actually translates to better protection for the older population than giving the vaccination to the older population. So that's something that we've known all over from different vaccination programs. So if you're 80 years and above and you have been vaccinated and you have household members who are younger who have not been vaccinated, you're still at a very high risk of getting COVID and getting sick and even from dying, even if you've been vaccinated. So it is important that you encourage the people around you who are younger to get vaccinated and take adequate precaution so that they don't get infected and pass on the infection to you.
2 questions left. You're doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. Tell us about monoclonal antibody treatment. What is it and who can benefit from it?
The question is about monoclonal antibodies and what it is and who can benefit from it. So the monoclonal antibody is perhaps the only thing that is licensed for treatment of mild to moderate COVID infection that we know it's effective, that works. It prevents hospitalization, it prevents progression to severe disease. What monoclonal antibody is refined antibodies against COVID. It works, it targets the spike proteins that the virus uses to invade the cells. So these are preformed antibody. What it does is boosts your immune response. It's like it gives you passive immunity against the virus. So once you get infected, before the virus spreads to all the other cells in different parts of the body, if you get the infusion of the antibody, blocks the virus from invading the other cells in different parts of the body. That's how it works. Anybody that is infected from 12 to 12 and above and is having mild sickness and they are not hypoxic, they are not hospitalized, even if they've been vaccinated, they can benefit from getting the monoclonal antibody infusion. And the sooner you can get the infusion, the better. Like I said, it works by blocking the entry of the virus into the cells. So if the virus has spread to all the cells in your body and you're getting the infusion, it's no longer beneficial. The rest, of the symptoms is due to the virus now within the cells and, activating, cellular damage and the immune response from the host. So the sooner after infection that you can get the antibody infusion, the better and the more effective it is.
Okay. I think we're good for time.
Yep.
I know it seems like you've been here for an hour, but you've only been talking for 18 and a half minutes.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, one last question, and then we'll cut you loose.
Okay.
We've been dealing with this pandemic for over a year. In your opinion, what will it take to end it?
The question is, we've been dealing with this pandemic for more than a year, 1.5 years, or a little bit more than that, depending on what part of the world you are in. And what would it take to end it? What it would take is for the whole world to wake up to the fact that this is a serious pandemic and that we need to do something to end it. I've said it before that every death from COVID is a preventable death. Because we know how to control it and we know what we can do to prevent infection. People talk about herd immunity. Herd immunity is going to come about when enough people have been infected and all vaccinated and have adequate protection against the infection. To me, the easiest way to achieve herd immunity is for everybody to get vaccinated. I've said it before. If we keep doing this rolling vaccination program, we are going to be dealing with this pandemic for a long time. What do I mean by that? If some people get vaccinated and when their immune system starts waning, then the other batch gets vaccinated, we're just going to be in cycles. We're going to continue to get infection in waves because there will always be susceptible hosts. With every disease like this, as long as there are susceptible hosts, you're going to continue to, the pandemic will continue, will just be coming in waves. So what's going to happen is, now the people who've been vaccinated will be protected, and then the people who have not been vaccinated would be susceptible to the infection. Many of them would either get infected or get vaccinated. And just as, the infection is waning in that population, there's another population, susceptible population, either because the virus has spread and become mutated and you have a new variant that would either infect those who have been infected before or infect those who have been vaccinated. And we'll have another wave of the infection. And we'll continue with that cycle and we'll continue to deal with it. Some people have suggested that we should just let it spread. The death and devastation that would follow would be unimaginable. The reason why people say that is because, again, if we go back to this Superman mentality, we think that we are not the ones that are susceptible. We think it's somebody else that's going to die from it. Just think about the number of people that have already, 1 in 500 Americans have already died from this disease. How many more do you want to die before, how many more people do we want to sacrifice before we think that enough is enough? To me, I've already seen enough death and devastation from this disease. Anything that we can do to control it, I would beg you, please, do it. If it means getting a shot, if it means wearing a mask, if it means social distancing, please do it. It may not be for your own sake. It may be for the sake of your neighbor. It may be for the sake of your parents. It may be for the sake of your friend, whose immune system may not be as strong as yours. Even if it's not for yourself. But what we tend to see is when people get sick and very seriously sick, then they say, well, I thought I wasn't, part of it. But look at it this way. You are at risk. Don't gamble. Even if it is not you, it may be somebody else. So do it for everybody, for the sake of the community. That's really, when we talk about public health, this is what public health is about. It is for the public. It's for everybody. Sometimes we have to make sacrifice for the sake of the common good. To me, the sacrifice that we have to make, the little things that we have to give up for this is very modest compared to the potential benefit to everybody else. I've seen a lot of people that I know die from this disease. I can't wait for it to come to an end.